wanted to make a quick ramble about something I've been thinking about for a while. If you guys remember when the Bow of Ferdinand was first announced, there was no option to make it not degrade, and casuals mostly got upset. High-level players were like, "Yeah, this bow should have charges to be balanced," and that left me in a really weird spot because I really thought that the bow should be undegradable, but it didn't seem to really thrive that well with people who were like more invested into the game. And as you guys know, the main I had at the time would have been able to use the bow if I had like wanted to spend the money on it. So this isn't an issue that was like completely irrelevant to me either. So I wanted to talk a bit about like my opinions on like chargeable weapons, degradable weapons, and so on. So if you guys remember back when like Raids 1 rewards were being pitched, I wasn't there at the time, but I've done my research on the era. They pitched these chargeable best in slot armors that would have been better than God War's armors, but essentially just like would be useless in most places because generally the upgrade wasn't worth the money you would be using to charge armors. And a lot of people pointed that out, and instead of that we got the ancestral robes that we now know, and no other best in slots from raids. And for that specific piece of content, I think that that was the best solution that they could have come up with. Now, there are some chargeable items that benefit greatly from being chargeable. For example, the Amulet of Blood Fury. This is an item that's very powerful in niche situations, and that is only really balanced by the time it takes to actually go get the blood shards, or the money on a main day it takes to sustain your blood amulet. And furthermore, it's not necessary for any content and serves more as a quality of life thing than anything else. So from my personal perspective, this item is just good because it's charged, and a big part of that is that the charges are the item. The Amulet of Blood Fury can't be separated from the fact that it's a charged item, right? They're essentially one and the same. And I think that's really important to like realize when we're going about like chargeable items. Another example of something that's good because it's chargeable is the arc light. The arc light is fucking busted. It's not balanced in any significant way, and the only way the item can be allowed in the game is because it requires the ancient shards, which are quite a grind to get if you're going for them, but like you get them passively through Slayer essentially, so it's not really a big deal. However, it means that you can only use the arc light in specific boss encounters or against demonic gorillas, right? You don't have an indefinite arc light that you can use against like abyssal demons or whatever. And to me, that's the most important part about that item too, because the dark light itself, right, isn't a significant item. The arc light is, and the arc light is the charges. Now, when it comes to things like the Bow of Ferdinand, it's not like the bow is the charges, right? It's not like having the charges in the bow is like necessary for the bow to exist. The bow doesn't really benefit from being limited in use. Now, you could say that it would be more balanced because as it is right now, you can spam the Bow of Ferdinand everywhere, but it barely ever beats out the twisted bow, and it's not really like a necessary item for a game. It's just a good middle ground between the T-bow and the nerfed blowpipe. So the essentially the bow doesn't really rely on being a charged item to be a healthy part of the game. But it's not quite an arc light or a blood fury. So where does it fall, right? And another example I can bring up to like further contextualize it is the crystal axe and the crystal pickaxe. Essentially, with these items, you want to use the crystal pickaxe at Volcanic Mine, and you want to use the crystal axe at Redwoods. There's really no other like super substantial uses for these. Like whenever you're 2 tick wood cutting or 1.5 tick wood cutting, the crystal axe does provide a fairly substantial benefit, but it's nowhere near the amount of benefit it provides at Redwoods, right? So if you have a limited amount of charges for that item, you're gonna use it for redwoods. If you have a limited amount of charges for the crystal pickaxe, you're going to use it essentially only at volcanic mine. And I think those types of niche uses for these items are completely fair. Like, it would be super cool to like pull up the motherlode mine and have a crystal pickaxe equipped, or I don't know, AFK, whatever the fuck stupid shit you want AFK in wood cutting with the crystal axe equipped. Like, or not even AFK, like you could do like Solia Sept with the crystal axe and it's not terrible. But again, it's not really like the best place to use your charges. So creating this environment where you always want to use your charges at the best place isn't really a problem. Because even though the crystal tool seed itself is a valuable item, it doesn't really define what the items do. The items are defined by their relation to charges, right? So they're not complete replacements for items that Jagex obviously wanted to give a purpose to. You're never going to use a crystal pickaxe as much as you use a dragon pickaxe. You're never going to use a crystal axe as much as you use a dragon axe. And I think that's a perfect place to be from a balancing standpoint. It's nice that the game doesn't overly incentivize you just using a straight up better version of items that don't need straight up upgrades in the form that the game is currently. So that to me is like the middle ground, and the Bow of Ferdinand leans even further from that. Because if the Bow of Ferdinand was put into a place in the meta where it was either like the fucking things like Arclight or fucking the Blood Fury, or even stuff like the Infernal equipment, because Infernal equipment similarly is super hard to upkeep. So you're going to use the Infernal pickaxe if you have like them to spare. You're going to use it for free tick forgery, for the extra smithing XP, and for the quality of life that not dropping provides you. And the same with Infernal Axe. If you want to AFK redwoods and not bank the logs, not burn the logs, you can just use the Infernal Axe and get some extra AFK time and some extra fire making XP on the side. And if you're just doing 2 tick wood cutting, basically the same goes essentially. Or 1.5 tick wood cutting realistically, because if you're worrying about efficient charge usage, you're going to be doing 1.5 tick ticks. But yeah, anyway, with all that being said, the Bow of Ferdinand wouldn't benefit from being restricted in this way. It wouldn't be useful if the Bow of Ferdinand was only ever used for like the Inferno, like okay, I'm gonna save all of my Bow of Ferdinand charges because they're so scarce for the Inferno. And it also wouldn't be fun if the Bow of Ferdinand was used like the other like crystal equipment was, because with the other crystal equipment, it's like okay, I'm only ever going to use the Bow of Ferdinand at God Wars and the Inferno and Zalra and nowhere else, or raids too, right? And if I'm just doing like whatever random boss that doesn't really benefit that much from a higher degree of range damage, I just can't be asked to upkeep the crystal shards, right? I don't think that's ideal for the game. I don't think that's even better for the game. I think the game is substantially improved by the fact that if you have the Bow of Ferdinand, it's an item that doesn't like force you to like consider its uses as much as those other items do. Because you might go like, oh, it's stupid that you can use the Bow of Ferdinand at places where it doesn't really matter. Like, you can just whip it out on like a Slayer task or whatever fucking dumb shit you want to do with the bow, and still be able to get the relatively good effects of it. But to me that's not dumb, that's just fun. If you have this powerful item and it's your best in slot range training for fucking some random ass Slayer task or fucking demonic gorillas or whatever the fuck you're doing with it, that's a good use of the item. That's a fun thing to do. Because even though the DPS increase isn't as necessary as it is with something like the Inferno, or something like long Zalra scale grinds, or something like fucking... I don't fucking know. Anyway, even though the DPS increase isn't as necessary as it would be with those other things, it's still super nice to have even if you're fucking just mowing down TKs with it, right? It's an item that you can have more fun with, specifically because it's not charged. You'd never consider bringing a crystal bow, or the Bow of Ferdinand rather, to fucking DKs if you had to upkeep the crystal shards for it. Because sure, you can have like your DK strip, but after that you're gonna be pickpocketing those for like a long ass fucking time, and it's just not fucking worth it. So in essence, basically, I'm saying that when you're considering whether or not items should be charged or shouldn't be charged, it should be evaluated, as I say, with everything on the basis of how fun it is, and with items that are like not dependent on their charges for them being like valuable or fun. I think it makes perfect sense for them to just not be charged. If the charging mechanic does not improve the item in any way, like it obviously does with other items, like the game would be fucking boring if you could just take the Amulet of Blood Fury to learn every single piece of content. The game would be fucking like the crystal pickaxe wouldn't have any value. It wouldn't be a substantial item to get if you're just gonna use it at Motherload Mine for a 5k XP an hour increase over the dragon pickaxe and just kind of flex it, right? That the value of those items lies exactly in the fact that they're charged. But with something like the crystal bow, the value of the item lies in the fact that it's a cool item, it's a strong item, and it's an item you want to use. If it was just like, okay, this is the item I use for the fucking Inferno, this is the item I use for fucking, I don't know, Hydra or whatever, it would be a lot less unique. It would just be that whip. It would be like the Dragon Hunter lance, essentially. Where it's like, okay, I'm killing a dragon, I'm using my Dragon Hunter lance, right? Or it would be an item like the Harmonized Orb, where it's like, okay, this is the item I use for fucking Zalra, essentially. Or crying out more Nightmare if you're trying like Inquisitor pieces. And it wouldn't really have any uses outside that. Or I guess the Harmonized Staff is still technically best in slot at other things like crates and stuff. But, you know, it's not going to be that for long because with rates free, it's basically just going to be better in every situation other than like some niche situations. I haven't seen all the numbers, but I'm assuming that it will be relegated to a super niche role because when we're just talking about raw mage DPS, it's not going to be the best item except in those specific situations when you want like a long range weapon or whatever the fuck you need. So yeah, anyway, things should be fun. That's essentially all of the entire point I wanted to make.